Okay, so in this video I'm going to cover how to move a WordPress installation from one host to another. So if you're finishing up a project and say you're working on an organization site and the client actually wants to use it, this video is going to cover how to set them up for that. So the first step, which I'm not going to go over here, is that you would need to purchase a new domain and hosting. So you could purchase it from Reclaim Hosting or any other hosting provider, but we need a place to put the new site. Once you do that, what we're going to do is we're going to export a copy of your current WordPress installation, and then we're going to import it into the new onto the new server. So the first thing we're going to do is install a new plugin, and we're going to search for Duplicator. And there's quite a few of these plugins that are for moving things around. I'm going to walk through how to use this one. Alright, so once I install it and activate it, I'm now going to go to Duplicator here, and it calls a package, it calls a backup or a download of all your files a package. So we're going to create a new package, and it doesn't really matter what we call it. Storage, you'll leave this blank. We want a zip archive. We don't want to change anything here, and I don't want to change anything here yet. So I'll click next, and then I'm going to go ahead and build my package. All right, so once it's finished building its package, there are two files to download. One is the zip archive, which is all the files for your installation, and the second one is this installer.php file. So I'm going to save both of those, and they're now in my downloads folder. So now what I want to do is I need to connect to my new host over FTP. So I've done that here, and we'll pretend this is my new host. Usually you're just going to want to install for a client WordPress into the like the public HTML folder, so that when you type in their domain name, it pulls up their WordPress installation. This is my public HTML folder. I already have stuff here, but I'm just going to go ahead and create let me make sure I know where I am. All right, so I'm going to create a new folder just to show you this. So a new folder, we'll call this client site. All right, so into that folder, I'm going to drag the two files that I downloaded. And then what I'm going to do is in the browser, you're going to load the installer file that you just uploaded. So I was in a folder called client_site. So I'll type my URL, client_site / installer.php. So if you were installing this into the root or the public HTML folder of store.com, you would just do store.com / installer.php. So this is going to open a file that will walk you through installing WordPress and loading all of your old settings into it. So I'm going to say I've read and click next, and it's going to extract all of those files, but what we need to do now is set up a database for the WordPress content to go into. So WordPress, all your content goes into a database, and we need to create a new database now so that that new content can be imported into it. So to do that, we're going to go to Control Panel. It doesn't matter what host you're using, you should have access to Control Panel. It should look basically like this. It might look a little different, but you'll have all the same things. So to create a new database, I'm going to type databases, and I'm going to go to MySQL databases. And then I'm going to create a new database. I'll call this one client. And then I need to create a database user. So I'm going to create a new database user. I'll just call it client user. Oh, I'm just going to call it C. Okay, I'm going to call it C. I'm going to type a really bad password. You should use a real password here, and I'm going to create user. Oh, okay. Okay, so I create the user. This is my username. So I'm going to come here to where I was installing, when I was running that installer script. And I'm going to tell it my database user, and I'm going to type in the password for that user. I'm also going to go ahead and give the database name that I created. So these are my databases. This is the one that I created, and I'm going to put that right here. Host will almost always be localhost, but if you run into problems for some servers, for some hosts, this is different, but it's usually localhost. Okay, the last thing we need to do is we created this myislands_c user, but we have to now add it to this database and give it privileges to change that database. So I hit add, I'm going to select all privileges, and I'm going to make changes. All right, so I've now updated the privileges, and hopefully when we test database, it looks like we're good, so I'm going to go next. All right, so I'm going to now tell it this is the URL that I want that WordPress installation to be. Again, for you, it'll probably just be a domain, and you'll probably just put those files into the public HTML folder. This path, hopefully all this stuff populates for you. You can change this if you want to, but it should be the same from your old WordPress installation. And now you've duplicated your site. So that's the process. It's a little bit long, but if you go through those steps, it should be pretty foolproof. If you're installing this on a new server, a new hosting plan, there's really not much that you can break. You can also use this process to create backups of your WordPress installation, which is a really good idea, especially if you're doing client work. Just, every month or so, back up their site for them. That way, if something happens, you can rush in and save them.